Tell me, how does 30% growth consistently, predictably, year after year sound to you guys? Almost too good to be true, I'm sure. Maybe not. 30% growth is certainly achievable if you apply the right tactics, the right formulas, and the right strategies to your organization, all of which we're going to talk about in this amazing series titled How to Grow 30% Year Over Year with Predictability with the amazing Mr. Ryan Groth. This series has been broken down into 3 awesome episodes, all of which target different areas of the sales process. You guys are going to absolutely love this. I can't wait to hear your comments. Jump into the community to be part of that conversation. That's me. Enjoy the series. Rock and roll. If you could win more work by exerting less effort, by simply changing your mindset from being in that I must send out quotes, proposals, bids to I need to learn how to sell better. Imagine what that would do to your business. The conversations that we consistently see coming up within the Facebook community with over 5,000 global business owners from all over the world within the trades is that topic of discussion around getting charging for bids, charging for quotes, valuing your time. In today's podcast, you are going to learn a framework on how you can effectively replace that whole bidding, quoting, proposal mindset and apply smart sales tactics so that you're not competing on price and you're winning the work that you want to win from the people that you want to work for. Guys, this is part 1 of the How to Grow Your Business 30% Year Over Year with Predictability series. It's a fantastic episode. It's all about how to win more work with less effort by selling versus bidding. Enjoy. Today's podcast has been proudly brought to you by Tradie Web Guys. Tradie Web Guys work with tradespeople only on their websites and marketing solutions to help them stand out from their competition. Everything from web design through to SEO, search engine marketing, content creation, you name it, guys. It is a customized solution for trade-based organizations and it's fantastic. Head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/apply, fill in the form and let's have a conversation.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Ryan Groth, welcome to the Site Shed podcast.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
All the way from Florida.
Yeah, man. From one ocean to another.
Gator country, right?
Yeah, the Gators. The Gators are all around here, bro.
You got the Gators, we got the Crocs.
Yeah, man. Quite the beasts.
So, mate, you're joining us today to talk. We're doing a series on sales. This is how to grow 30% year over year with predictability. Exciting. It's a big claim.
Yeah.
I know you can back it.
Can back it, man.
So it's a 3-part series. The first episode, which we're talking today, is how to win more work with less effort by selling versus bidding. Episode 2 is going to be optimizing for an ever-growing and juicy sales pipeline. And episode 3 is going to be wrapping up the series with achieving contractor nirvana by building a high-performing sales team, all of which are highly relevant. You came recommended through my man, Danny Kerr from BT Academy, or Andrea, actually. So thank you, Andrea. And yeah, we basically are 2 peas in a pod across different ponds here. You're a bit of a baseball fan, as am I. And so this is going to be fun. Tell me a little bit about your story, mate. Or tell the audience, I should say, about your story. And actually, for you listeners out there, this is a video podcast. The Site Shed is full video now as well, so you can check it out on YouTube or across on our Facebook page.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Matt. Again, it's an honor. And guys at Breakthrough Academy are doing great things. And, glad to be connected with those guys as well. So, but a little bit about me. Families in the contracting business. So they were tradies, as you guys call them over in Australia. And I was on the roof. I was working, turning the wrenches and using the Sawzall and the hammer drill and all that stuff. It was going great. And I was like, Florida's hot, bro. I got to find a way out. So I love sports, you know, and I often think baseball and contracting is so similar. You know, having seen the game of baseball, I ended up deciding to play the game. My son's saying hi to me. Decided to go play the game pretty serious and went to the college ranks and got drafted a couple of times and ended up playing for the Angels and really just kind of decided I'm going to go play pro baseball. So I tried to make it to the big leagues, didn't quite make it, but you know, it was a great experience playing professionally and playing at that level, getting exposed to that kind of talent and the organization and just the pressure that you feel to perform and how good of a person that helps you become. And so, yeah, a little bit just shortly after that, you know, making that transition and identifying myself with as a pro athlete, I'm like, man, how do I kind of make it to the big leagues in a different way, right? Like, what's the next chapter? And I started getting mentored by some business guys, and specifically was told how, you know, selling is a great skill, and I should get into it. And crazy connections were made, and I ended up meeting a commercial roofing contractor who had a local programmer design a CRM for his business. And he's like, man, the roofer said, I want to take the CRM, you know, to the market. And when I met him, it was perfect because I was moldable and I was hungry and I wanted to grow. And his whole program was about building a sales organization and having the CRM be a tracking tool to help him automate reports and follow-ups and, you know, sales processes, milestones and pipeline and goals. And it was just a really cool system that he built that solved the problem for him as he was moving from just kind of a contractor who just bid work to a real sales organization. So as I got involved with him selling the CRM, I realized people needed a whole lot more than the CRM to be successful, like the contractor that I, you know, began getting mentored by. So he was doing like 25 million when I met him, and I launched and started
Through
the
the
company.
roofing business or through the CRM?
In the roofing business. The CRM, you know, it started with 0 monthly recurring revenue, and I grew it quite a bit. Got a couple hundred contractors on there organically, and but what really, you know, was a lot of fun was I started consulting, coaching, training the contractors on like why and how and all the other elements and contributing factors that helped them be successful, because they wanted to sell more and grow their business. That's why they bought the software, but they weren't running sales meetings effectively. They weren't doing sales training. They didn't have a sales process. They didn't have a good environment. They didn't hire the right people. They had estimators and salespeople doing the same, and maybe it was time for them to split up those roles. There's a lot of different things that happen. And for me, I got to see the insides of what ended up becoming what it is today, you know, $55-60 million roofing company. And just all that mentorship and then hands-on coaching experience and the ability to, you know, speak with a lot of authority. And then being an athlete, you know, I love teams and high performance. It just kind of merged this solution to a problem that's raging in the industry, which is just, you know, lack of structure, lack of focus, you know, lack of the ability to sell and how to do it the right way without being pushy and, you know, used car salesman-y, and really build like a professional, you know, championship level type team. So, so as I kind of grew that skill set, man, it just became really evident that I love doing this and I can kind of take more control of the kind of results I can get people if I did this full time. So I decided to jump off and build Sales Transformation Group. And I've been doing it for almost a couple of years now, 1.5 years completely, but been coaching for 6 years in this space, and it's going really well. And got working with a lot of good people, and married with 3 kids, and living in South Florida, man.
Lovely.
So life's good.
And soon to be coming on one of our surf and learn programs.
Yeah. Yes. My wife and I are down. Let's do
it. Sorry, kids. Cool. That's awesome. So, obviously, any recommendation or friend of the BT Academy crew or friends of mine, those guys are fantastic. Stoked to hear your work, guys. They do good stuff. And I suppose to kickstart this series, we're starting with episode 1, which is how to win more work with less effort by selling versus bidding. Now, this is really interesting, actually, and we've got a lot of roofing contractors and clients as well, which would be very interested in this series, I'm sure. But I know it's a constant conversation within the community. And I know you're in the community as well. So if any of you listeners out there want to ask questions, Ryan's in there, so you can ping him in the group. But there's always conversations, arguments, discussions, hate mail about bids and quoting, as we call it over here. So I know within the building industry, especially, like a lot of our clients will spend, sometimes days or even a week, quoting on a project and not necessarily charging for it. It's starting to level out these days. I think a lot more contractors are learning they need to be charging for quotes through listening to, I suppose, people like yourselves, educate them on how they can go about doing that. So I think it's a very, very powerful message. A lot of people still aren't doing it. And I think it's just due to probably a lot of mindset stuff and maybe a fear of the unknown. But as you know, you're green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. So it's all about evolving and learning how to I suppose, adopt these new skills. Because it's amazing. While you wouldn't expect any other industry to spend a week on a project and not get paid for it, it's just insanity. So yeah, I'm keen to dive into this, and I know some of the pain problems. You tell us. Throughout this series here, what are some of the pain problems that we're looking to, I suppose, alleviate or address?
Yeah, whatever contractor you are, trade person you are, when somebody has a problem, what they're typically conditioned to do is just ask you for a price. They think they want a quote, so they get quotes, and they don't really know exactly what they want, but they know they want something, and so they're conditioned to think, I need a quote, so let me call and get a quote. And so what we're doing is, on our side as a contractor, is we don't really realize that what they're asking for isn't necessarily what's best for us. We end up defaulting to their process because we're trying to be customer pleasing, right, and do what they want. And it's nice, but what they really want is a solution to their problem. But what we end up doing is just bidding the job. And so if it's a construction type of job, I've done some studies here. It could cost you $1,000 to $2,000, to $1,200 on average to put together a bid. And that's just like time and energy and measurement. That's on average. So if you think about, the reactive, hey, they want a bid, we give them a price. We end up, doing all that, emailing it to them. There's really no sales process. There's really no questions. We don't really get any of their why. We don't really qualify them. We don't really find out if we're the right people. We don't find out if there's a timeline. We end up giving that bid, and then it's like crickets, right? It's like we don't hear anything. And, then we think they didn't call me back. So what we feel we need to do is just hurry up and bid another one. So we hurry up and bid again, and then we do it again and again. And then eventually we get one, but it's typically because we were low bid and they asked us to cut our price or something of that nature. Or, maybe we just happen to get one. But it's like baseball, man. You're a baseball fan. It's like a hitter swinging at every pitch. And if you think about that, like a guy who swings at every pitch, even if he's like a big power hitter, he's going to get exposed and he's going to be not really effective. And what we want to do is actually score, right? We want to actually put some margin on the backlog and then clear some work and make some money. Mm-hmm. And so that requires you to get on first base, then on second, then on third, then on home. What contractors think is the way to get on first is just by swinging every time and just putting everything they can into it. And so the really good ones, though, as are the ones who know how to take the ones that aren't good, wait for their time to strike, and then they make their pitch. Then they put together their presentation. Then they say, I want to solve this. This is how it'll solve it, because they're waiting for their opportunity. And I just think that's the nature of business and the nature of competing, is that it takes self-control and it takes a really good eye and it takes patience. And then if you do that, man, by having a good sales process, and not just jump into the bid, even if they're trying to get you. Here's the thing: like a pitcher's trying to get you to go out of the zone, right? That they want to strike you out. A customer, and the more sophisticated they are, the more they try to screw you over, right? The more they're trying to get more out of you for less. And what we need to do is not function that way and have that equal business stature where we're peer to peer equals. We ask them questions and make sure they're a fit for us equally as they are doing for, to us for them.
Yeah.
And so when you have that position, you start really selling now, and you're not just bidding, and you only decide to estimate what you are ready to estimate within the appropriate context. And then you stop, living in that 10 to 20% closing ratio world, and you start living in like that 50 to 70% closing ratio world. And so you're spending less time putting together your estimate, less time putting together, you think that that's selling because you're a contractor. It's not. That's just a formality at the end if you do a good job on the front end. And most people don't really know how to do that, and they're just bidding just to bid it. They're just bidding it to bid it. They think this is what we're supposed to do. We don't want to piss anybody off, so we don't. And really, that's not the goal. The goal is to make it a win for you and a win for them. And everyone's happier when that's the case, and you're able to provide better value. Your project managers are better. You don't have as much pressure, and you're able to have more fun growing your business when you're selling versus bidding.
I know one of the big shifts, both physically within like product delivery and like paradigm in thinking over the last couple of years with both my own businesses and our clients' businesses, is being able to communicate to them how, just basically what you said, you don't want to be, not everyone's your client, and you've got to be responsive to that. It's not so much a matter of, and it's hard when you're starting out because you're like, I'll just take any work I get because I don't have any money coming in. And I get it. Like sometimes you may have to do that initially, but like when you get to a point where you can really start making decisions, and and now like a lot of the companies are confidently in a position where they can turn away more work than they accept because it doesn't suit their avatar. And it's a powerful position to be in when you can say, oh no, I'm not interested. We can't, it's not with us. You speak to these guys instead. And it also takes a lot of load off because like you just said before, you're not always quoting on jobs. You're quoting on the right jobs, and sure, it might be 1/10 as many, 1/5 as many, whatever that is, but it's still the ones you want to be quoting on, and it's still the type of work you want to be doing for the type of client you want to be working for. So there's a lot of wisdom in that, and I'm sure we're going to dive a lot more into that as we get going. Well, who's this series targeted at? Is it more the business owner, or could it be anybody?
Yeah, I think the owners and managers who are, that are pretty involved in the company should be paying attention to this, because a lot of this is a cultural thing, a mindset thing. A lot of owners are like, dude, we got to bid everything. Right. And then the sales guy's like, well, the owner, I don't want to. Now there's a friction. But if the owner has top-down buy-in to this type of approach to really sell and have abundance and to be really narrowed and laser focused and have a better sales process, then man, it's a game changer. But it's certainly something that a sales guy would benefit from, but the owner should definitely be paying attention.
Yeah, cool. I know there's probably a lot of, we might have to save it for another episode. There's a lot of listeners out there, viewers out there that will be interested in the sales process, helping them train their technicians and things like that. But I suppose what we're really talking about here today is more on the macro level. It's more about laying the right foundations across the organization, so that stuff will filter down when we get down to the door-to-door sales or whatever you guys are doing from a technician point of view. Probably not door-to-door sales, but yeah, you know what I mean. All right, cool. Let's jump right in. So this is the first episode. This is how to win more work with less effort by selling versus bidding. So yeah, I mean, obviously, as we've sort of already spoken about, a lot of selling versus bidding. So how do you avoid bidding? I mean, if somebody's coming to you and they've got a proposal, you've got to bid on it, right?
So say that again. What would be, how do we avoid bidding?
Yeah, I mean, if you're selling versus bidding, you've still got to effectively bid, right? I mean, people are coming to you with a proposal. So explain yourself, human.
Or a need. Yeah. So a bid would be, just bidding would be like, all right, so I got a problem. Okay, here's how much it's going to cost to solve the problem. That's bidding. Like that's estimating. That's important. We need to do that. Selling, though, is doing something else first, which is finding out the cost of the problem if it's not solved. That's the difference. So selling is, like, I'll say that again. Selling is coming up with what's it going to cost if it's not solved, which creates tension, urgency. It creates more value. For example, like if you're doing, give me an example that a lot of our listeners might be running into with their clients. Like, give me a client avatar that they're dealing with, for example.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is copywriting 101. We're talking really here about selling the benefits and touching on their pain points, right? So let's just take roofing, for example. Sure, their roof's rusted and it looks ugly, but what's the actual problem? The actual problem is there's water leaking, it's damaging their ceiling.
Right.
There's rats and stuff living in the roof, possums in the roof over here, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. They tried other roofers to repair the leak. It wasn't solved. So there's a cost there. There's all these different costs. So cost for sure is is quantifying. That's selling, coming up with a cost of the pain point. And it could be even more just emotional, just frustration or agitation, right? So, or fear or anxiety of the future if it's not solved. So really selling is having dialogue around that and then creating that tension between current and desired situation. It's a little awkward for people who want to be liked, and they're so sweet and cuddly in the sales process. It's tough because you're asking them questions that you feel like you already know the answer to, but it's about them, not about you, right? So when you do that, coming up with the cost to solve it is a formality, and it's a lot easier to do. You have a lot more confidence. People are like, what's it going to take, so to speak, versus we skip all of that, then your bid is your bid and you got to compete on price, or you don't really have any leverage to compete with anymore that they've expressed, because we just skipped the sales part. We just went right into the estimation bidding part. And it could be a 5 to 20 minute to maybe an hour long conversation, but we're doing that more often with the right leads. And then we're improving our ratios big time. So you're feeling like you're not just bidding the next thing to bid, and you're managing your capacity a lot more and your efficiencies a lot more. And people just enjoy the result because they got more involved. They feel like you care more and they respect you more because you took the time to listen. And it's amazing how that affects the marketplace.
So in terms of like when we're talking about an existing sales process, which might be somewhat like, for a lot of the listeners out there, they'd be thinking, well, it's easy. Someone rings up, they ask for a quote. I go home, work on it for 2 days and email it to them. So what we're really talking about now is changing that sales process so that, and it's actually something that we've been working a lot with a lot of our clients. We do it ourselves. Like, we practice what we preach completely. Like, people ring up, they ask for a job or a proposal, and like, we need to be on the same page here, and we need to not waste anyone's time. So one of the first things we do is we ask them to fill in a questionnaire on the website, which qualifies them to a degree, and they go through and they just basically brain dump on it. And we set this up for our builders as well, because a lot of the builders, especially, people will call them. They'll get calls all day, especially one of our amazing websites, but they'll get calls all day, and the people won't necessarily that they're speaking to be ready to have the conversations that the builder needs to have with them at that point in time, because they haven't got things like insurances, they haven't got finance approved, they haven't got development applications submitted with the council, they haven't got all these things, right? So there's no point in the builder wasting half an hour on a phone conversation, or they haven't got a budget, only to find out, in an hour into a conversation, oh yeah, our budget's 25 grand and the project's straight away going to be 150 grand, So that's been really useful, and like being able to qualify. So changing that sales process from like putting that extra step in has been valuable. And the other thing that's been valuable for them is, and I don't know what you do about in regard to this, but so where you were saying before how you're competing on price when you've got two different companies that are submitting a bid or a proposal. It's a bid, it's a quote, right? So you go, oh, I got a quote from this guy, I got a quote from this guy. Why is yours so, why the prices may be similar, whatever. You spent 2 weeks on this one, this guy spent 10 minutes on his. So what a lot of the guys are doing now is, because the quoting process for building projects is so detailed, and some of these guys put so much work and effort into it, instead of going to the client and saying, well, yeah, here's your quote, they'll say, well, we don't actually do quoting per se, but what we do is a detailed project analysis. It costs you $2,000, but at the end of it, you get presented with a complete booklet here. And you can effectively take this. We'll deduct it off the price of the project if you decide to go ahead with us. Otherwise, you can take this and you can give it to other contractors that they could use that in their pricing, in their quoting process. And so it's sort of taken the dynamic of quote versus now, okay, we've got a quote here which is free versus a project analysis, which is $2,000. But the guy who's giving a quote is going to need this to quote properly anyway.
Yeah, that's those are some good items that you've implemented. The questionnaire, so screening, and then then the half an hour or an hour long meeting with somebody to really take the time to ask the right questions, I think is important. And the project analysis $2,000 thing, that could be something that is awesome. Or they could just decide after the meeting that they don't want to invest the time to proposal because they don't feel like that they're committed. They don't feel like they have a real reason. They don't feel like they're willing to pay a little bit more. They feel like that they're not going to let them get with the actual decision maker that cares about this. Maybe if it's business, it could be a board or an owner. And if it's B2C, it could be dealing with a couple, owner party or whatever. So just like slowing down a little bit more so that you can meet with people and go spend those 2 days, and then you're going to get 10 of them is worth it.
Yeah.
I think the $2,000 analysis, especially in the builder world, can make a lot of sense. And I think that's pretty cool, but yeah, it's just a mindset. Mostly it's just changing from, I'm happy to quote your job to, no, like I'm a consultant here, and my time's valuable. So is yours. But if you're committed and you're a good fit, I'm happy to make your dreams come true or solve this problem, whatever it is that looks like, and partner with you here. So yeah, it's certainly a mindset that we got to make a shift from, because a lot of people though are conditioned to just get a quote and they think that's the right thing. And most people, in the contracting world just react to that. And they're like, sure, they want a quote. Let me give them a quote. And it's like, no, pump the brakes, bro. Like, we're playing baseball here. I'm waiting for my pitch. Let me just make sure that they're a good fit. Let me ask them some good questions. And that's where a good sales process comes in. And I like some of the things that you're talking about for the clients you put together.
So
you're working with.
Let's talk a little bit about like the sales process, at your end, and how you typically, or what you work through with your clients, how that might look.
Yeah. So I have a resource here that just kind of shows a pinup of the baseline selling process. So I use a game of baseball, quite a bit. And one of the things I like to do before I actually give somebody the sales process is I do almost like a scouting report analysis. Like where do you measure up? Like, how good are you, and what are all your hidden weaknesses? Because somebody could have, I can give them the best sales process in the world, but they may have some kind of head trash, and be up in their brain that would hold them back and lock them up from doing it like regularly. Or maybe they're just not that motivated, or there's a couple of different things that I like to kind of get in place. Cause I can give this golden sales process, but if somebody doesn't know what they need to do to change because they don't really want to, or maybe they do want to change, but they didn't realize what they need to change. Once they start addressing those, they know it's a problem. The sales process is really powerful. So I do that evaluation. It's like a scouting analysis, for in sports, but for sales. And I show everybody exactly how great they are at some things and how weak they are in others and how it affects them. So I do that first. It's more of it's like a psychoanalysis in a good way, like getting your brain in a really renewed,
does that tie in
place.
Does that tie in, Ryan, to like personality profiling kind of thing?
In a sense, yeah. There's stuff out there that's like the DISC, behavioral, and then there's stuff that's more behavioral or personality. This one is strictly sales competency based. Gotcha. So it's specifically designed by sales for sales, and that's why I use it, because I think introverts can be awesome at sales, because they ask a lot of questions. It doesn't mean you got to be, doesn't mean that certain behavioral patterns aren't good. It's more sales based. So yeah, then I kind of help them with the sales process, and with this, I think you have a download here, a resource we can share. It's just a pinup of the sales process, but really you know, it's like you're on home, just like you're playing baseball, and there's an identified issue, and you schedule an appointment. And so now you're on what I call first base, and they're at this point a suspect. So you still got to be suspicious, you know, have some healthy skepticism. Just because you're on first base doesn't mean they're, you know, a qualified lead, right? Most of us are conditioned to believe that. We got to slow it down. So now we're on first base, we got a meeting, and we have an identified issue. So what we want to do is get to the real why. You know, tell me more about that. How long has this been a problem? Or, you know, how long you've been wanting to do this? You know, what's the problem? What's the cause of this problem? Depending on the type of trades you do, you know, you may be solving leaks, or maybe you're designing something new. We want to get to their reasons to buy, and we want to get to the emotion, you know, because the intellect will shop, right? You know, if you talk intellectually, people are just going to shop. But when you get to the emotion, that's when they start paying you. You know, they get to those feelings, whether it's frustration or excitement. We want to get to that place, and then we want to quantify the problem, which I talked about earlier. You know,
So, for example, your client doesn't necessarily want a house built. They want, you know, they've got another family member on the way, and they've outgrown the place they're in, and they need a bigger living space because the kids are unhappy and cramped.
Yeah, now, or there's that, or they want their grandchildren to come over and have plenty of place to play, and they want to be able to have like family reunions. Like that's in a home building scenario, we want to get to that, man. Like if you really want to be good, you got to get to that place, and that's where you're breaking into a different level of trust and care, because when they feel that, they'll pay more because they believe you understand how to help them get to the why, not just the what, right? Which is the house. The why is this, and now you're helping their real why come true. Or if they're just frustrated or they're afraid, we were avoiding that, you know, panic attack from happening. Okay?
I suppose fundamentally though as well, I mean, this is my experience with any job that we do. If we don't put people through that process, we won't deliver the right product. Like you'll miss things. You have to ask the questions in order to get the result. You can't possibly, you know, you can't be psychic about this sort of stuff.
And most contractors think they are psychic, man. We just think that, oh, I've seen this movie before. They want this, and this is what they're going to need, right? And so, and that's just like and that's mainly because you're just so freaking busy and you don't manage your time very well, and you're not organized, and you don't know how to just stay present and slow down because you're running ragged, dude. I get it. Like, but this is a mindset. So yeah, once you get to that and you've quantified it, like what's the cost of the problem, like I mentioned earlier, now you're on second base. They're a prospect. So that's very conversational, going from first to second. And then going to third is going to be, you know, just kind of really testing them now. Like now that you share all this stuff, now let's measure their ability to really buy from you. So kind of now we're asking some what I think are more difficult questions, like, you know, how committed are you to making this happen? Are you willing to pay a little bit more with someone, a professional like myself, to make sure this gets done right this time, the first time? You know, who else cares about this? Like basically decision makers. And then when are you hoping to have this project completed and solved, or this dream come true? When do you want that to be done? So now you're getting timeline. And then you're like, well, you know, is there anything that I'm missing? You know, how are you guys making decisions? What's your criteria and process for something like this? You know, when you built a house before, or you put a roof on, have you made decisions? And that's where you're really testing, is it, you know, how much is it as a price? How much is it quality and reputation? How much is it as those things? And now we're finding all that out before we go spend 2 days on a proposal. Yeah. And then when we decide we're going to go solve that problem with a presentation or a phone review of it, not just an email, don't email it, but show up at the house or show up at the building and present it. And then they should be ready to give you a yes or a no. And you just ask, you know, what I call the inoffensive close. You know, do you believe I understand your all's current and desired situation? Do you believe I have the expertise to solve it and make it happen? And do you want my help? It's kind of like a yes, yes, yes. Well, if you want my help, here's what we're going to do. You know, we're this many weeks out, sign a contract, start the process, give you the deposit, bang, bang, boom. Yeah. So closing's really easy on the back end when you do the hard work on the front end. And that's a little bit of how the sales process works. And that's what I'm teaching people to become masters at. And when they do that, the results start to really kind of change, and it's a lot of fun.
So for the listeners and viewers out there, Ryan's left some templates for you guys, actually. So you can get to them through the show notes for this podcast page. It will also be available in the resources section of the SiteShed website, which is siteshed.com/resources. Go get them. They're there for you to basically take and turn into your own. It's pretty complex. It runs through pretty much what Ryan's just discussed there. And so you can take it and tailor it and suit it to be yours. And I think that's important as well. Like when you're talking about, matching a process like this with the individual, like putting your own sort of unique spin on it. I think a lot of people try and fit into a box when, that's not them. But there's nothing wrong with doing it. It's just set your own way, following a certain framework. It's not designed to be exactly the same for every single person.
Yeah. I mean, there are guys out there that know that they gotten results and they've proven out a good process. And so they're like, no, everybody has to be like this. And I think there's some sales trainers have that kind of, ego God complex about themselves because they've proven something out.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, what we want to do is give someone milestones, that are supportive of the outcome that they want, which is to sell more at a great margin with less effort and feel like they're in control. Because when you have that control, you have predictability. When you have predictability, you're able to say, hey, Matt, bro, like if we're business partners, like me and my couple sales guys or 10 sales guys, whatever it is, we're hitting our forecasts. We can like do this. And your backlog's getting bigger. I think we can invest into more crews. Like we can actually do this because we have predictability to the point where we can keep this engine going. And a lot of people, they don't have that. And then, they have to let crews go. Or what happens when a crew finds out that, they don't have another job, they start talking and they leave. And so you have the most precious resource in our industry is labor and skilled labor. So having predictability because of a really good sales structure based on milestones, right? Not based on like a rigid robotic structure. And I think when you have that kind of milestone centric sales process that's supportive of an individual to get, to sell value, to sell consultatively, to qualify and overall like close efficiently. And like it becomes fun. And certainly there's one-liners that are helpful, but at the end of the day, when someone knows the milestones and why all those are important, they can make it their own. And then when you got somebody kind of being that natural athlete, like I talk about sports a lot, it's like one swing, like Barry Bonds has got a great swing, but like not everybody can hit like that, right? Not everybody can hit like Euclid, Kevin Euclid or something like, Kevin Euclid hit 330 and he's like got this hand, like his elbow, like at his like, his like top of his head. So everybody's got a different deal about it, but the fundamentals though are the same. And some of the main structures of the swings the same, just like a really good sales process is going to be fundamentally the same. I mean, you've heard people talk about pain points, right? But how many people are really doing a good job of that on every sales call? Like how many people are? No. Most people just bid, dude, in this industry. They just jump to the quote. They talk about how awesome they are versus listening and asking questions.
Yeah. So what's that analogy? 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that order and you should be right.
Yeah, totally.
All right, brilliant. Well, look, have we pretty much come close to wrapping this episode up, Ryan?
Yeah, I think so.
So again, for the listeners out there, Ryan's left some frameworks, resources available for you guys to go and get. Do go get them. They will help you. Actually, one thing I did want to ask you, Ryan, I know like with this kind of stuff, do you encourage or do you, especially when guys are starting to learn this, this new paradigm, this new approach, this new way of this new sales process, do you do it in like a sort of is it like a checklist sort of thing, either mentally or physically in front of them where they go through and they go, oh, have I done this? Yes. Have I done this? Yes. Have it? Oh, I didn't do that. Let's do this. Like, is that how you run it?
Ideally, yeah. People are at home, they're not working, they're doing calls out of their desk where they could just have a script in front of them. And I think people can tell when something's scripted. So I'm a lot more around the notion of like,
no scripts.
Yeah. Like I'm just not a script guy, but I am a practice guy. I'm like, let's practice. So, my group calls, I do a lot of role play. We coach, we get into the zone. And it's like, I say to guys, I'm like, dude, I'm like the hitting coach in the batting cage, ready to go. And if you want to work, let's work. And we'll break things down and we'll just get better. And that's how I view it. It's like, I mean, dude, if you're in the game, bro, and you're friggin' like, you're in the game and you're thinking about like the load and then the stride and then your hips and then like swinging, through the upwards flat back blast and then your finish. Like, you think about doing that in the game, you're going to K. Like, you're striking out.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm big on, let's kind of make it muscle memory and condition the mind through practice. And instead of trying to practice on your customers, practice at home or practice with your clients. Practice with one another. So that's why, coaching and, with me and getting sales managers to become really good coaches with like scorecards and things like that, and peer coaching is really, really valuable and a huge component to like building a championship team. What championship team doesn't practice? What championship team doesn't work together and look at game film? So stuff like that. I use sports a lot when I teach because it's the same to me.
Yeah, you're not the first person to draw a business and sports analogy, that's for sure.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
cool.
And that's what I did for a few years. So it's just second nature, So.
Okay, well, for the viewers out there, listeners out there, that was how to win more work with less effort by selling versus bidding. That was the first episode of the How to Grow 30% Year Over Year with Predictability series that I'm conducting with Ryan Groth, my co-host for this series. Ryan is from Sales Transformation Group. That's salestransformationgroup.com. By all means, head across there, check them out. We're going to be coming back, guys, with the follow-up episode to this one, where we're going to be talking about optimizing for an ever-growing and juicy sales pipeline. That will be exciting, I'm sure. So stay tuned for that episode. You'll see that come out if you're viewing these on YouTube or on our Facebook page and in the group. If you're listening, of course, wherever you consume your podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, whatever, we're everywhere. Ryan, thank you for your time, brother. It's been good.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here. Good chat.
Let's come back and knock it out of the park with episode 2.
Let's do it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from this show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.